G'day, guys. This is the chat with Jay with the koalas, kangaroos, and Steve Irwin impersonations, and the leader of the Eagle Nation and the next gen Eagle West Coast Eagles. I'm a member of it. Obviously, a massive Eagle supporter. But if I had a number one ticket, I would give it to this man, the leader of the West Coast Eagles next generation. West Coast Eagles is a AFL team for all our international viewers. But this man was a king. We've met, I think it's about 10 years ago, I think it was, or something like that. But this man is a leader in our nation, ladies and gentlemen. I spoke to him many, many times, but the way he's built himself up since I've met him with basically with regards to the Eagle Nation podcast, which he has on. So basically talks about our team, the West Coast Eagles, which is obviously, again, an AFL team, just to let you guys know. But his dedication and his leadership with a 10,000 subscriber group on Facebook. And what he does on the group is amazing. The way he leads, the way he moderates. And look, it's such a hard job to moderate egos. And this is why I want to speak to this man. We had many, many chats. And Wazza, he's a media man too over in WA, which is a great thing. So he's a wonderful individual, and thank you so much for coming on board, mate. I'm very excited to have you on a chat with Jay. Thanks very much, mate.
Thanks, buddy. Kind words. Lead is probably a bit too strong a word for me, but
No, no,
thanks for
not at all.
that. Yeah, there's two Facebook pages. So yeah, one has 10 and one has 14. So but they're basically linked. So one's a group, one's a page. So social media, and then there's your Instagram and TikTok and all those things, which I'm trying to get into, which you sort of like got me onto on the TikTok things. I'm still trying to work that stuff out. I'm a
Yeah.
bit old for that stuff.
Oh,
But
not at all,
yeah,
mate.
good to
Not at all, mate.
good to be on here.
Mate, it's been a pleasure to have you on. And why I got you on for my friend, obviously, being a massive, obviously, both of us massive Eagles supporters, we're very happy with what we've done in the last 35 odd years. But I wanted to get you on because when I met you, you were starting this journey with regards to the leader that you become in WA with regards to the West Coast Eagles. I mean, with Eagle Nation, if you want to jump on, you'll see the screen grabs coming on. Talks about our team, but what I'm really impressed in is your story, how you how and what you do outside of the West Coast Eagles that brings that into what you do as a media or as a media guru. I'll call it media guru for now. But
Oh, you're too kind with those words, man.
mate,
Guru
mate,
would.
but I listen to Eagle Nation, mate, and the time and effort you put in, but it is amazing. But what I say to you, mate, I just want to know some of the qualities that Wazza King has that brings out in. Oh, I see it in posts. I see how you moderate people, how you talk to people. We don't have to agree on everything, but the way you talk to people is amazing. The way you, I mean, it must be absolutely crazy. I mean, social media is a crazy thing, but could you tell us a little bit about, give us a little bit of a background on yourself first, and then you can tell us um, how this group grew, how this group has grown, and how it's really changed your life, my friend.
All right. I'll give you a bit of a background because I work in when I'm not watching footy and doing the podcast and stuff like that. I'm actually working the disability sector. So um, you know, people think they have a hard time. Every day I wake up and you go to work and you see people less fortunate that can't like look after themselves. There's all different sorts of disabilities and stuff like that. So that sort of like sparks me for the day. And then I sit there and um, as with wellness, everyone goes through dark times. I had myself, and football was probably a bit of a way of an escape sort of thing. But you can't do that by yourself. So I had friends around me, and I know and a lot of our mates that we do know is a big man called Tom Shiora, who's a wellness
Yep.
coach. Plus, he runs a couple of gyms, and one day I saw what he was doing on social media, and he saw what I was doing, and we connected. And since then, we've had this sort of like connection. We're like brothers, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm there for him, he's there for me, so I bounce things off him. So that's basically my background. Footy, I just love. I got onto social media late. I wasn't a really big fan of social media. I didn't go onto an Eagles page until probably in 2016. even though I'd been on, Facebook, what it was for about 10 years. So I just didn't really like the whole vibe, but it came out of necessity of getting kicked off a couple of Eagles pages for speaking my mind. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's all right,
and
mate. Yeah.
and I think a lot of us have been in that vote, and I've probably been accused of that, kicking people off the pages that I help run. And yeah, I set them up, but I have an admin team that does a lot of the work, like the Next Generation West Coast Eagles page. I don't do much there at all. I do the artwork because I love doing artwork, and they run that. They're great guys. And there's been lots of people that have come through there and jumped on and jumped off. And at the moment, we've got about five guys. There's Chad, there's Melanie, there's Steve, there's Dan, there's Rob, and myself. So we run that, and then Eagle Nation podcast basically was born out of that page, um, purely because talking, discussion things on Facebook at the time, because that was all it was Facebook. Instagram wasn't a big thing back then.
Yep.
And I did the first couple of by myself, and it was really hard to talk to yourself doing
It
podcasts.
does.
It just took,
It does, mate. Yeah, it does.
and I'm sitting there going, and people that know me say I don't shut up. I talk a lot, but when you go to talk yourself into a screen, it's pretty daunting. So I just put it out there, and a couple of people ended up putting their hand up and coming on, which was Dan McCormick and Wayne Hardman, and they're the guys that keep their podcast going because you got to bounce things off them. I
Yep.
sort of like facilitate.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work with any podcast. You do a lot of groundwork in it, and it's a
Absolutely,
lot of
mate.
it's for nothing. And now, unless you're syndicated to a radio station, getting sponsorship's pretty hard.
Yeah, it
You've
is.
got to
It
rely
is.
on sponsorship to get your equipment and stuff like that. So, and 6 years ago, podcasts went. Radio didn't want to know podcasts because they didn't think it was the way to go, but now that's all they do. And so, podcasters like me, and there's so many of them with footy and other sports, they find it really hard to compete with these guys. But we have our audience, and this off season, I took a break. I said I need a refresh, and I said I need to
And
get my
why'd you,
wellness, mate.
can I ask you, yeah, you were saying about wellness and taking a break because, I mean, you've been full on for, especially
Yeah.
I think probably the last 3 or 4 years, I've seen a really big step up in what you've been doing. I
Mm.
mean, you say you're not as involved, but from my point of view, I see you fully involved. And as I said, we've had discussions privately. I mean, just
Yep.
two mates having a chat, and I'm intrigued by the way and just the way your demeanor and the way you come across on those pages is amazing. Just as, and that's why I call you a leader because I've seen the way the way you speak to people. You're very respectful. You give people a chance to speak and all those kind of things. And now I find that very big qualities of yourself, my friend.
I try to be, but sometimes when you do that, you can't please everyone. And that's the battle about. So that's social media, Some people you can't read tone in text, as they say. While I've been good running some of the pages and got a lot of support, there's a lot of people that hate me out there as well. So, but that's it.
What happens,
I,
mate?
a lot of West Coast pages, and it's not just West Coast pages, it's any sport pages, basically. A lot of people compete within themselves and they're all trying to, it's like a little competition, but we're doing it for love. And, we try and let people speak their mind. And that was another reason why we started the Next Generation West Coast Eagles one, to emphasize on the youth coming through for the footy team for one, but also to speak your mind, because other pages you speak your mind, and if you said something that was slightly negative or critical, you got kicked off and stuff like that. So we didn't want to be like that. But 6 years down the track, excuse me,
No
I
worries.
can see why people do that.
Yeah, well, look, as I said to you, when you see what you do, that must be a damn hard job. I wouldn't want to do it personally, as I said to you, so tell us a little bit about your mindset when you go into that, mate. I mean, because obviously, I've listened to the Eagle Nation podcast, listen to them all, and I reckon they're fantastic. Your knowledge of what you're doing, obviously. I mean, being an Eagle supporter, I know a lot, but the way you put things out, what's your mindset there? Wazza? What do you? Because I mean, it's probably new. Do you feel that it's new to you as well? Because I mean, you came in blind when I first met you, and you've got this wonderful thing that you're doing now. This social media I'll call it a juggernaut for what it is. You know what I mean? But you 6 years ago go, oh, I'm doing a podcast that's going around the world, and I've got these two groups. We've got like 25,000 people in. I mean, you've done a wonderful job, mate. I just want to know where your mindset started and where it changed. It's personal.
It started with Big Tom. So he basically, we're on footy pages, and he for people that don't know Tom, and you probably should get him on because he is wellness. He's a wellness coach, right?
He's next. Don't worry.
And he basically was reaching out. No one would give him a go, and our page was just starting, and he was doing a video one where he'd interview people after the game and all that, and he was bugging me. He goes, "Oh look, man, you got to come and you let me post on your page, but you got to come and talk to me after the game." And it was the last game at Subiaco Oval.
Oh yeah.
So 2017, and I said, all right, I'll come and see you, but you got to give me the questions first. So I don't. I hate being video. I hate being on this medium right now. I hate people looking at me.
Yeah,
and that's why social media.
You done very well, man. I appreciate you coming on. It's really good.
You can hide behind a microphone. No one sees you. And so I did it, and I got there, and he didn't ask me one of the questions he gave me. So I was out, uncomfortable. But out of that, we formed a relationship. And the next thing he said, "Oh, look, I know you, and do you know some other mates can?" And I said, "Well, why don't we just put it out on Facebook or someone, and get a group of people, and we'll sit down and we'll talk footy." And he did a little podcast thing, and I can't even remember what we called it, but we put it on YouTube, and it was about 8 guys just sitting around talking about the Eagles. And out of that, I went, well, this is not too bad. This is pretty easy.
Yep.
Why don't I do that? And that's why I started the podcast. And and to me, it's just like 3 guys sitting around a campfire, basically talking footy,
having a chat,
giving his views. And it's good because we're all from different demographics. Wayne used to play waffle, and he's the eldest out of us all. I played a lot of amateur games. I played 240 games in amateurs.
Oh, there you go. Now, who'd you play for, mate?
I played for Carlisle Cougars.
Okay.
So
whereabouts is that? Whereabouts was that in WA? So
that's basically in the city, in Perth, right in the city. So Carlisle Cougars is basically like 3 minutes away from where the Eagles train now. So, and there's a couple of little stories there that the Eagle girls ended up training on our ground a couple of years ago.
Okay, cool.
And they put in lights for us for nothing, so that was good.
But that'd be good.
And now they're back at Left Lane. So, and then Dan, he's younger. He's like, he's younger than both of us. So we see footy from 3 different angles. And it's just, we chew the fat basically and just give our opinions. Some people like it, some people don't. And we all know people connected to the club. So, some things that we know that we can't go with because, privacy, and I wouldn't like it as well. So, and unless, not everything you hear is true. So, we just try and present what we think about football, and I'm always about the youth, about the younger guys playing, and that's the reason why I started doing that, both Facebook pages, so we could focus on the draftees, because no one was doing it back then. Now everyone's doing it, so
you're the pioneer.
No, I would say I was pioneer, but
hey, I've got to say it.
Out of the Eagles pages, maybe. Out of the Eagles pages, I was the first one to focus on the youth. But, that just evolved into the team. And now we've got a new team. It starts again. So it's like a 6-year cycle. So here we go again. And it just gets everyone excited. But, last couple of years, as you know, it was pretty hard running a social media page when everyone's negative. So, and that was taxing. And
how'd you cope through that being a leader, mate? I mean, because he goes through.
Well, that's why I took a break. I took a break at the end of the season. I said to boys, I'm not going to be on social media. I need to refresh because it's just all negativity. I need to just go and do something different. And I only really got back into it about 2-3 weeks ago. And I was sitting there going, and we had our first podcast last week. And it was, we're like, oh man, how good is this? And because we all had a break, we all went on holidays. We all went different holidays at different times. So it was a good excuse to get away and have a complete break from it. But now we're back in footy season. So now we're doing it again. And it's good.
It's good to like to understand about that negative vibe. I mean, especially, obviously when you've got a complete negative outlook and you got people's energy coming at you. It's sometimes too much, isn't it, mate? And how did you as a
Well,
leader in that area? Tell us a little bit about that, mate, because I mean that's a big thing.
I learned because I used to be a negative. I used to be highly critical to some players, and even me and you, we've had some
Absolutely.
ribbon discussions on some players,
Yeah,
and
oh,
everyone sees
can I butt in on that
everyone's
one? Can I butt in on that? Sorry, but sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you there. I want to butt in on that because what I want to say, absolute total respect for this man here, regardless of what your thoughts are. And this is where you have proper discussion. So I wanted to throw that in, mate, because
Right.
there's absolutely differences in opinions.
Yeah.
But what a testament to this leadership of this man is you can have a discussion, and that's it. It's
Well, that's it. There's no point. There's no point arguing
keep
over
going.
stuff.
Sorry, yeah, keep going. Keep going. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, there's no point arguing over stuff. Everyone sees different things. Everyone feels different things, and until you walk, well, there's a saying: until you walk in somebody else's shoes, you don't know what people are going through. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
and sometimes, you just got to think about that. And social media sometimes can be a real killer.
Absolutely.
If you're suffering depression, I wouldn't be on. If you're going through hard times, I wouldn't be on social media for a start, just because, like I said, you can't understand tone through text.
Yeah, it's
So,
not. You're not wrong, mate.
and that's just the way I see it, because yeah, you can write something that you think is harmless, and somebody reads it and you go, well, what's that, man? What's that mean? Why are you having a go at me? And you go, well, actually read it, and then you read it and you go, oh, I can see how that's perceived negatively or something like that. So it's pretty hard, but we've run in groups. That's why if you did it by yourself, you'd go nuts. So that's why having a team around you, you bounce things off each other. Some people are got thicker skins. Like on the Next Generation Eagles page, I probably got the thinnest skin of all of them. All the other guys have got real tough, thick skins, and they're just saying, "Wazza, you just got to chop this guy, or chop this person, stop being forgiving." And I said, "Well, always give a couple of people a chance, but it has burnt me a few times, and I'm not going to mention who they were and stuff like that. But
Doesn't need to,
and it
mate. It's
hurt,
fine.
and it hurt me, and but at the same time, I didn't know what they were going through, so in a day, you just cut them off and you move on. I was involved with another group that I got blocked from, and since then I've actually been happier. So
Have you?
sometimes it's a
Have you?
sometimes it's a blessing.
Have you taken that into real life, was there as well? Because I mean, you
Yeah.
say that you've as I said, the experiences that you had with people on there. I mean, you don't know them. I mean, you might know them catching up at a game or something like that.
Yeah.
Just hi, how are you? Oh, it's was it from the next gen there, but you don't know them intimately, and they have that issue online, and then you go right. I've had enough. You got to block it, but you've given them that chance. Have you had that in real life as well? Has that taught you a lot with regards to dealing
Oh,
with people at all? Or
I think it deals everything in that's on social media you deal with in real life, because, like you said, you can't please everyone. But I think I learned, like, I used to talk first, think second
no,
a
okay, yeah,
lot,
yep.
right? And then I'd sit there go, what did I say that for? And why did I do that for? The actions and stuff like that. And it wasn't until I sat down with Big Tom again. I'm going to bring this guy's name up a lot because he
Oh
does
mate,
a
don't
lot.
worry, he's next. Don't worry.
Um, and I did a couple of workshops through him, and you just see things through different filters and stuff like that. And for you to get around in life, you just got to be happy within yourself, and you got to find out what motivates you and stuff like that. And like now, I'm doing a leadership and management course, which I thought I would never done 2, 3 years ago. I would have said, why would I want to do that? I don't want to do that.
Is that within your
But
job, mate? Is that within your job that you're doing that?
yeah,
Or
that's in within my job.
yep.
And it's opened my eyes up to uh, a lot of things. Even though when I'm sitting there I'm going, this is a pile of shit, a pile of common sense, but that's most things are common sense. It does have a lot of everything interlocks with things, and
Yep.
it's just the way you present yourself. It's how you talk to people. It's how you appreciate people. And there's always a saying: treat other people like you want to be treated. You know. So if you're been a prick to somebody, they're going to be a prick to you. So
Do you
um,
think in that way? all these cliches, wasn't it? That's what this is why I got you on, because I mean, we've had these discussions. I went back to when I was last in Perth and we had that, we were talking for about 2 hours. And your knowledge on that, you kept bringing these things up. That's why I thought to myself, I've got to get this guy on because he has that knowledge. So do you think these cliches have been pushed down, and why do you think they're common sense but people don't use them? What's your opinion on it? Because I mean, coming from a social media background as well, do you think that's affected it in some way, or is it
Oh yeah,
just in general
social
society?
media. Social media has changed the world as it is in the last 5, 6 years. So people just think totally differently. And some people live on it, and then there's others that don't live on it. Like I know people that, like I was even speaking to today, and they're not even on Instagram. They're not on any social media. And
Right.
I look at them, and part of you sits there and goes, how do you contact people? How do you do this? But they're so content in their lives, so they don't need to be on it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And then there's other people that can't go without it. So yeah, I just think it affects everyone's different lives differently. And like I said, at the end of the day, you put what you put out, you get back. If it's another
Absolutely. It's
cliche, like,
another cliche, mate.
and it's just common sense. It's just like, and you sit there with your, I sit there and I used to sit and go, oh, what are my parents talking about? What are you going on about? Like, stop giving me all this dribble. But at the end of the day, it's all got a purpose, and I guess it comes down to respecting things and respecting others, and that's probably back 100 years ago. That's men were called gentlemen. You know what I mean?
Stoic
Uh,
behavior, mate. Oh,
it's just
I'm a big rap fan. I'll talk about that in a minute. Sorry
yeah.
to cut you off there.
People wore suits everywhere. They wore suits down to the road. You know what I mean? It was
Yep.
respect. It was you did as you were told. So many people now got their own opinions, and that's good too. You know what I mean? You got to let people be themselves, but there is a line that you got to just have that respect and be kind to people. And if you're a prick to people, you're going to get what it comes back. If that makes sense.
I'd like to take this time to shout out our supporters at Liberty Bullion, the best gold, silver, and platinum traders in Melbourne, even Australia. If you want to give them a call, their knowledge, their customer service is second to none. Back to the show.
Um,
Absolutely, my friend.
I don't know. That's just the way I am. And ever since I met Tom, I've looked at the world differently. Like, I go to his gym on Saturday mornings, which I'm going to tomorrow. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it, and he's going to kick my ass. And then, yeah, we have a bit of a laugh, and then he says, "What do you learn out of it?" And I just say this and that, and we just have a laugh, and then I get on my merry way. And like, I used to sit there and watch him. He'd have all these little sayings. So I don't know, people that on my social media, they'll see I put up little quotes
I've
every
seen
now
it.
and
Yeah,
then.
I've seen the quotes. Yeah,
And I just do that because I see it somewhere, or I've had him in a book, in a songwriting book or a poetry book, and I've written them down somewhere, and then I find it and I go, oh yeah, well, I want to pass on to somebody else, and it might make somebody's day. If it does, good. If it, if people see it, they see it. If they don't, it makes me feel good. So that's all that matters.
absolutely. So you go back to that stoic behavior, and I think you're right about. I still open doors for people, right? And
Yep.
everyone says to me, goes, "What do you do that for?" It's like one said, "Why do you do that for?" Number one, and I always, it's just normal for me. I don't know about you, was I'm
Yep.
sure you're the same.
Yep.
It's like if you open the door for a lady, right? It's just do it, or even open the door when you get there, and you might let someone in, or it's like it's a weird thing, and I think we've lost that. I think 100% we've lost that, but and it's become a point where it's actually forgotten in some ways. Now ask where the gentlemen are, and when you do that, people go, what is that? And it's stoic behavior. And I think he's definitely lost in the world. I think that's what I said to you when you got social media. How do you bring those stoic values into running a page? And what do you
It's
think about
hard.
that?
I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to bring that in. You just got to apply your values to what you're doing, I guess,
Mm.
whatever you're doing.
Yep.
So, and I just want to say something like, and I used to sit there and I honestly used to stick up with a lot of people that had some real strong opinions that were in the negative, and people go, "Oh, they're always negative." And there was this ongoing battle about, "Oh, you're not a true fan." This is back to sport, and I'm going, "Well, what is a true fan?" You know what I mean?
It's a
And
good way of
I was,
looking at it.
it just always bugged me. like,
But what's
and
your
I've been
what's your opinion of a true fan, my friend? Because you get people right, and we
to me.
know we can talk about this because we've been, you got to. It's an opinion of what's having say with us with the Eagles. There's someone there's opinion. They
I,
call you couch coaches,
yeah.
but you know what
At the
we're
at the end of
seeing.
at the end of the day, I don't think there is such a thing called a true fan, because if you're a fan of someone, you
Yeah.
can support them any way you like. But if you want to be ultra negative, that's your call. If you want to be ultra positive, that's your call. But it's when you're telling other people how to support, that used to just really rile me up. It's like,
I agree.
sorry, and I've been to the footy where I'm sitting down and I call it passion. I call it passionate supporters. But then you can put passion on a different level. You can have it, oh, I'm really positive passionately, or I mean, you can do that better, but you're still being passionate about it because you want the best out of them. Um, and sometimes people see that as a negative, and yeah, it just really irks me. It's just like, yep, don't have a go at them. Say, well, why do you see it that way? Well, why do you see it that way? And why can't you say this? And why can't you say that? And I got to a point where I was a shit stirrer, and I used to call everyone like Rose, and I'm
Oh, the
not happy
rose-colored
about it.
glasses, the
Yeah,
rose-colored
I'm
glasses.
not. I'm not happy about it, but at that point of time, it was just pissing me up the wall all the time. I go, take your rose-colored glasses off and have a look at the real world. And then I thought, well, after a couple of months of doing that, I'm going, well, that's the way they see things. So, and you can try and change them as much as you like. If that's the way they want to do it, just let them do it. And you can either have a good discussion with them, you can have an argument with them, or you can just not talk to them at all. So, at the end of the day, to answer your question, I don't think there is such a thing as a true supporter of any sport. Everyone treats them differently, but I did watch football last night and I saw people abusing players over the boundary line when they're walking back in.
Yeah, man.
And we
Oh,
won't mention the club. And I just thought,
oh,
if
we
I
can if
ever,
you want. We can if you want.
well, Carlton, right? And
Down,
I'm just,
down.
and I said, if I ever saw an Eagles supporter doing that or a friend doing that, I'd just pull them aside and go, what are you doing? Mate, you sit on your ass. Can you go out and play that game? Have you played that game at that level? Are you telling me they're not trying? Are you telling me this? And, you know, I, I'll always call out somebody like at the end of the day, I go on body language, and you
Okay.
can
Yep.
tell, you know, to me, body language is a big thing. And you can tell if somebody's invested and somebody's not. And sometimes the clubs go out there and some of the players aren't. But that's not to say the whole club is, but some of the
No,
players
no,
aren't,
no. That's right.
and that's when you lose a game of football or a soccer or whatever. So um, yeah, I'm a big person on body language, and if you present body language that's good, I'm more invested in you than somebody that's not. So and
That's
that
and
and
that's
I
fair. That's
and
fair. Yeah.
And I'd take that back my way as well. So, and I've been guilty in it before. I've learned a few things through work where I know I transgressed and did the wrong things, but you learn from your mistakes. And the problem is, if you don't learn from your mistakes, that's where the problem keeps reoccurring. So,
Well, and as I said to you, that's where it comes out. I think it's a great awareness, Wazza. I think that's why I said to you, like, with the leadership that you have with what you're doing with the social media. I mean, it's a big group. I know I've been a part of it. I'm looking at it and all that stuff, and I've learned a lot about myself going through my journey from had that when I had my issue, and then starting that journey. And you go through the time, but it's an awareness of where you are and
yep,
having a look, and that's all it can be. I mean, you do what you need to do. You do what I mean. No one's trying to hurt anyone as much as as you said. It's a journey. You go rightio, and then if you can get an awareness, you get an awareness, and go from there. I think it's more
yeah.
about
Look,
value too. I think it's more about value too. Value on yourself. That's
yeah,
how I've worked out. So
it's about your values and well, like in work, you have your values, you have your mission statements, you have the way you want to approach things. And like you said, it's everything is an awareness. You know what I mean? I've lost some good mates just from football. You know what I mean? Because it's like, but at the end of the day, I've got no problem with that because I know who I am. I know what I do. And if they want to believe something that they've heard from someone else or have this belief, that's their fault. I'm not going to try and change their mind. You know what I mean? It's
no,
negative energy. it's negative energy I don't want to put out there, and it's not the negative energy I need. And before it used to consume me, and like I said, every day is differently, and even people that how do you say it? Like you can be in a good spot, but you're always learning, and you're always appreciating different things, and yeah, just do what you got to do, and just try and be happy.
Absolutely. Do you think there was a time when did you, a particular time or a particular event where you felt like that sort of really kicked in for you? You know, like you sort of like maybe went to the footy and met someone, or you saw an event, or no, saw an event. Sorry, should I say saw something happen, or is there anything that clicked, or is it just a progression of time?
It's just progression of time and getting older, and
Yeah,
I'm going to
as we
say it.
do, as we do.
I'm going to say it again. Like I think it's maturity
Yes.
as well. You know what I mean? Like when
Yep.
you're 20, yeah, everyone's different. Like I look at my life when I was 20, 30, I'm totally different to what I was then. You know what I mean? So and there's this old adage, if you knew what you knew now back then,
Yeah, that's right.
you know what I mean? There's all these other sayings
Absolutely.
again. And
Absolutely.
you wonder why, well, why do people say that? And then you think about it and you go, well, yeah. Would you change things? Yeah, you would change things, but you wouldn't change everything because you are who you are now because of who you were before.
We are
You
talking.
know
We
what
are
I mean?
talking right now because of the
Yeah,
journey we've been on to
yeah,
get to this point where we're having this chat. I want to ask you a sports question before we do part one. We're going to get into part two. I want to do some footy stuff with
yeah.
you because I want to plug that. So we'll do that. I'm just going to throw. Okay, so we're talking about AFL here, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I just want to reiterate because I know that a lot of people overseas will be watching. So AFL, Australian rules football, West Coast Eagles, Perth. There you go. Tell us your five. God, it's going to be good. Your five greatest Western Australian players, football players. Number
Oh,
one.
so football players.
AFL players, doesn't matter. There'll be AFL players from born in Western Australia, your top five, and I'll give you mine.
Well, my favourite player never played AFL, so can I include
It
him?
doesn't matter.
All right.
You tell me who your greatest five, and I think we're thinking of the same guy.
Well, the
Um,
greatest player I've ever seen play football is Stephen Michael from Fremantle.
that's the same as me, mate.
All right. So I don't think anyone comes close to him. And as a teenager, watching him play football, it was like I hated South Fremantle, but you just watch this guy in awe.
Yeah, I've seen all the
You just
highlights.
watch this guy in awe, and players that are playing now, and this is where youngsters like. If you haven't heard of the name, go back and have a look at him. His YouTube, there's
I'm going to be putting some photos and some stuff up, my friend, so they'll know who Steve was after this one.
so there's YouTube on everything these days. So and it's hard to say top five because another player who never played AFL, but I played against him one day, and I'm not going to go on about that, but it was my best game I've ever played.
No,
Was
right.
and he said it to me afterwards as well. He said I kicked his ass, so it was good. But it was Les Fong from West Perth.
Yep,
So
heard of the
if you're in
name.
Victoria, you might not have known him, but he
I've
played
heard of the
like
name.
primary.
I've heard of the name there.
Yeah, he was a little forward rover sort of for West Perth because I was a garlic muncher for them.
Love it.
And then
Love it. The garlic bunches. I love it.
and and then I've got to look at Peter Matera,
We're thinking alike here,
from
mate. We're thinking alike, my
like
friend. We're
I
thinking
wanted
alike.
to mold my yeah, I tried to mold my game on him, but I was an amateur. I was nowhere near him. But I tried to do what he did on the field, and it didn't look that great. But sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I ended up with the name KB instead. But
Okay.
you know,
There's that goal in the 92 grand final when he bombed it from
yeah.
50. That was the and he's gone like that. You know what I'm talking about.
Well,
That was
I know what it's like because
I
at
was there.
footy I never passed it if I was winning 50. So
Oh,
there it is.
right.
And
Number four, my friend.
oh, geez, it's hard now. I could put a lot in there like Dean Cox, but I go on players that I like watching. And not saying they're the best, but Benny Cousins to me was
We like Benny Cousins. We like
Benny
Benny.
Cousins. Him and Chris Judd are really hard to separate as
Yep.
players. But I just think, and probably Chris Judd was the better player, but I just think Benny Cousins had that something about him. And yeah,
He had
Chris
that
Judd.
aura. He had that aura, that rock star aura, didn't he?
Yeah, if Chris Judd had stayed at the Eagles, I probably would have said he was the greatest Eagle of all time. But
Yep.
yeah, and yeah, I can name. And you know, this guy that I'm going to mention, he wasn't the best ruckman out, but there's not many people that can do what Nick Naitanui did.
Well, we
All
got
right,
that right,
so
Fred. Absolutely.
there's not, you know, and people sit there and they abused him and they go, oh, he can't do, he doesn't get this amount of kicks, but he didn't need to get that many kicks.
No.
The way he applied his craft was, and I talked to a lot, you know, you talk to a lot of AFL footballers when you see them at functions and stuff like that. And one of the questions I ask is always, oh, so what do you know, if they were a midfielder, go, what was it like being in the midfield against Nick Naitanui? And all they'd just sit there and go, the guy was a freak. And then to
I,
me, that's all you
I,
need to hear. The guy's a
I,
freak.
I
So,
remember a game at Subiaco. We've got about 2 minutes to go on this part.
yep.
There was a game in Subiaco. I think it was the Australians versus the Irish. I'm pretty sure. And I was watching. I think I've always wanted to see this. I think it was Nick Naitanui and Scott Pendlebury in the middle. And I thought, okay, this is going to be good because I could just imagine because Pendlebury's one of the best players I've ever seen. The guy's a freak, and I'm thinking, oh my god, can you imagine Nick Naitanui tapping it to Scott Pendlebury? I'm just thinking this is gold because
Yeah.
Pendlebury would have. Can you imagine those two talking, but they're going just the conversation, the conversation between okay, mate, I'm gonna go left. If you can flick it, because this guy can't ruck, we'll go flick. If you can flick it backwards to me, mate, I'll just run around the back. It would have been amazing.
He just did a podcast on Backchat, and he was basically saying that there was midfielders he would have loved to have been rucking to. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I suppose it goes both ways because he sees midfielders he knew, you know, Luke Shuey knew where to go with him. So
Yep.
you know, but you know, they said, what would you be like rucking to Harley Reid these days? He goes, oh, that'd be a dream, you know. So
Yeah,
it
that's
goes both
exactly.
ways, I guess.
That's it. We're going to finish part one. We're going to start with part two because we're going to keep talking a little bit of football, go about Eagle Nation, talk about Big Tom again because Big Tom's he's another main
He's a big
character.
presence.
He's a big presence and a main character in this one, so it's fantastic. And again, thank you very much, Wazza, for coming on and sharing those great thoughts that I needed to share to my fans and everyone that's been watching. It's what we're the essence of this chat is about, finding out about where you're coming from, what you've learned, and how you are right now. So it's fantastic. We'll see you back with part two.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much, and we'll start talking some WA football. Start talking a bit about the Eagles. We'll talk to you very soon, ladies and gentlemen. Take care.